a dying billionaire signed his name one final time and gave away his entire fortune to an 11-year-old orphan he had never met. His 4 children, all billionaires themselves, expected to inherit Nigeria's largest oil empire. Instead, they got nothing. But when they tracked down this mysterious child in a remote village, what they found wasn't what they expected. A barefoot boy herding goats who had no idea who this dead billionaire was, and no idea why anyone would leave him anything. But there was a dark secret buried in that will, a truth so shocking it would destroy one family's greed and create a legacy that would change thousands of lives. If you've ever wondered if justice can reach across generations, hit that subscribe button now, because this true story from Nigeria will restore your faith that sometimes the universe finds a way to balance the scales. Let me take you inside the mind of a dying man. Chief Bartholomew Okezie lay in his private suite at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, surrounded by machines worth more than most people's houses, breathing air filtered through systems that cost 6 figures. Outside his window, Victoria Island sparkled like a jewel, towers of glass and steel built on the foundation of his oil empire. At 78 years old, Chief Bartholomew had everything money could buy: oil wells pumping millions daily, real estate across 3 continents, stock portfolios that could fund small countries. His name opened doors from Abuja to Dubai to London. His 4 children had inherited his business acumen and multiplied their wealth. Ada ran a media empire. Raymond controlled shipping lanes across West Africa. Ifeoma owned half the luxury hotels in Lagos. Toby had turned tech investments into billions. The Okezie dynasty was untouchable, unstoppable, unstained by the struggles of ordinary Nigerians. But as Chief Bartholomew stared at the ceiling, counting what might be his final breaths, he wasn't thinking about his empire. He was thinking about a man named Umeh, a driver, a father, a man whose life he had destroyed 43 years ago with a single lie. It was 1981. Chief Bartholomew was younger, hungrier, building his first major oil contract. The deal required clean paperwork, no bribes, no shortcuts, no questions about how certain permits had been obtained. But there was one problem: a paper trail that connected back to some questionable payments. Payments that could destroy everything he was building. His driver, Umeh, had been in the car during some of those meetings, had heard conversations, had seen exchanges of envelopes. When government investigators started asking questions, Chief Bartholomew made a choice that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He blamed Umeh, told investigators that his driver had stolen money meant for legitimate permits, that Umeh had been taking bribes and forging documents, that everything was Umeh's idea. The evidence was thin, but Chief Bartholomew's word carried weight. Umeh's did not. Umeh went to prison for 5 years. His wife died of a heart attack 3 months after his arrest. They said it was the shame and stress that killed her. His children were scattered to relatives who could barely feed themselves. Chief Bartholomew's oil empire survived, thrived, grew into the foundation of everything that came after. But every night, for 43 years, he saw Umeh's face, heard his voice from that final day. "Chief, you know I didn't do this. My children will suffer for your lie." Umeh died in prison, never saw his children again, never lived to clear his name. And Chief Bartholomew never forgot. "Call my lawyer," Chief Bartholomew whispered to his private nurse, "I want to change my will." The nurse thought she had misheard. The will had been updated just 6 months ago, dividing the empire among his 4 children, grandchildren, and various charities. Everything was perfect, organized, planned. "Sir, are you sure? Your children will need to approve major changes." "My children don't need to approve anything," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "This is my money, my choice, my redemption." When Chief Adebayo, his lawyer for 30 years, arrived, he found a man transformed. Chief Bartholomew was sitting up, his eyes clearer than they had been in months. "I need you to find someone," Chief Bartholomew said. "A boy named Obinna Umeh. He should be about 11 years old now. Lives somewhere in Nsukka village, Anambra State." "Umeh?" The lawyer frowned. "That name sounds familiar." "It should. His grandfather was my driver, the man I sent to prison for crimes I committed." The lawyer's face went pale. He had been there in 1981, had helped prepare the case against Umeh, had never questioned his client's version of events. "Chief, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to rewrite my will. Everything, the oil wells, the real estate, the investments, the foreign accounts, all of it goes to that boy." "Everything? Chief, that's impossible. Your children, your legacy." "My legacy," Chief Bartholomew said quietly, "is a lie built on an innocent man's destruction. It's time to give it back." It took the lawyer's investigators 3 weeks to find Obinna Umeh. He was living with his maternal uncle and aunt in a small compound in Nsukka village. His father, Umeh's son, had died in a motorcycle accident 2 years earlier. His mother had died during childbirth. The boy was 11 years old, as Chief Bartholomew had predicted. He attended the local primary school when he wasn't helping with farm work. He herded his uncle's 3 goats every morning before classes. He had never owned a pair of shoes. The investigators watched from a distance, documenting everything. They saw a quiet, intelligent boy who helped his elderly aunt fetch water from the well, who shared his small portions of food with even younger children, who read borrowed textbooks by candlelight because the compound had no electricity. When they reported back to Chief Bartholomew, he listened to every detail in silence. "Does he know about his grandfather?" "No, sir. The family never spoke about it. Too much shame. The boy thinks his grandfather died of illness." "Good," Chief Bartholomew nodded. "Let him learn the truth from my letter." Chief Bartholomew died on a Tuesday morning in October. His funeral was a state affair. Politicians, business leaders, foreign dignitaries. The cathedral in Victoria Island was packed with Nigeria's most powerful people, all dressed in expensive black, all expecting to hear about the orderly transfer of one of Africa's largest fortunes. 2 weeks later, the family gathered at Chief Adebayo's law chambers for the reading of the will. Ada arrived in her latest Bentley, already planning how to expand the media empire. Raymond came straight from a board meeting, calculating shipping route expansions. If Omer wore enough gold jewelry to blind anyone looking directly at her. Toby checked his phone constantly, monitoring cryptocurrency investments. They sat in leather chairs around a mahogany table, confident and comfortable. Chief Adebayo opened the thick legal folder with trembling hands. "Before I begin," he said, "I need you to understand that your father recorded video messages to accompany this will. He was very specific about his intentions." Ada waved dismissively. "Just read the numbers, Chief Adebayo. We have other meetings today." He cleared his throat. The last will and testament of Chief Bartholomew Okezie, written and recorded on October 10th, 2024. The children leaned forward. To my children, Ada, Raymond, Ifoma, and Toby, I leave my personal effects, family heirlooms, and my gratitude for the successful lives you have built. They waited for the percentages, the business divisions, the real numbers. And to Master Obinna Umeh, age 11, of Nsukka village, Anambra State. They frowned. Who was Obinna Umeh? I leave 100% of my business empire, liquid assets, real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and all other financial instruments. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Ada screamed, "Who is Obinna Umeh?" Ada's voice shattered the dignified quiet of the law chamber. "This is impossible, Ed," Raymond said, standing up so fast his chair toppled over. "Papa couldn't have done this. He was sick. Someone manipulated him." Ifeoma just stared at the lawyer like he had spoken in a foreign language. "A child? He left everything to a child we've never heard of." Toby was already on his phone, probably calling his financial advisors to freeze assets. "There must be a mistake," Ada said, her voice shaking. "Read it again." Chief Adebayo's hands trembled as he held up a second document. "There's also a letter and video recordings. Your father was very explicit about his reasoning." "Play the video," Raymond demanded. The lawyer connected his laptop to a screen. Chief Bartholomew's face appeared, weak but lucid, speaking directly to the camera. "If you are watching this, then I'm gone, and you are angry. You have every right to be angry, but not for the reason you think." His voice was slow but clear. 43 years ago, I destroyed an innocent man named Umeh to save my business. I sent him to prison for crimes I committed. He died there, separated from his children, his name destroyed by my lies. The room went dead silent. The boy who now inherits everything is Umeh's grandson. I am not giving him charity. I am returning what I stole from his family. Ada's face went white. "Papa was corrupt?" The video continued. "The fortune you thought would be yours was built on someone else's suffering. You have your own wealth, your own success. You don't need blood money. But this boy deserves what his grandfather never got: justice." Within hours, the Okezie children were on their way to Nsukka. 3 SUVs rolled into the dusty village like an invasion force. Designer clothes and air conditioning meeting red earth and wood smoke. They found Obinna exactly where the investigators said he would be, in a field behind his uncle's compound, guiding 3 scrawny goats toward a patch of grass. He was barefoot, wearing shorts with holes in them and a faded school shirt. His legs were dusty, his hair needed cutting, and he looked exactly like what he was, a village boy with no connection to wealth or power. "Are you Obinna Umeh?" Ada asked, stepping out of her SUV like she was visiting a different planet. The boy looked up at the convoy of expensive cars and well-dressed strangers. "Yes, Ma." "Do you know who Chief Bartholomew Okezie was?" Obinna shook his head. "No, Ma." "Well," Raymond said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "congratulations. You just inherited the largest oil empire in Nigeria." The boy blinked. "I don't understand." And that's when they realized the magnitude of what they were dealing with. This wasn't some sophisticated scam. This wasn't a long-lost relative playing games. This was exactly what it appeared to be: an 11-year-old goat herder who had no idea his life had just changed forever. Obinna's uncle and aunt were terrified when they saw the convoy. They thought someone was in trouble. Maybe the boy had damaged something valuable. Maybe there had been an accident. When the truth was explained, they couldn't process it. "You're saying this dead man left our nephew billions?" "Billions," Ada confirmed, her voice bitter. "Money that should have been ours." The uncle, a gentle man named Emeka, who survived on subsistence farming, shook his head. "We can't accept this. There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake," Ifeoma said coldly. "The will is legal. The money is his." But Obinna himself remained quiet through the entire explanation. When they finished, he asked the question that stunned everyone. Why would a rich man give me anything when he didn't know me? It was Raymond who answered, reading from their father's letter. "Because 40 years ago, that rich man destroyed your grandfather's life with lies. This money is meant to fix what was broken." Obinna absorbed this information with the serious expression of a child forced to grow up too quickly. "What happened to my grandfather?" And that's when they told him the full truth about the false accusations, the prison sentence, the death behind bars, the family destroyed by one man's greed. Obinna listened to everything. Then he said something that would haunt the Okezie children forever. "So this money is dirty money." The Okezie family hired the most expensive lawyers in Nigeria. They claimed Chief Bartholomew had been mentally compromised by his illness. They demanded psychiatric evaluations that couldn't be performed on a dead man. They argued that no sane person would leave a fortune to a stranger. But Chief Bartholomew had anticipated this. The video recordings showed him answering complex questions about his business holdings. Medical experts confirmed he was lucid. Multiple witnesses, doctors, nurses, the lawyer himself, testified that he understood exactly what he was doing. The DNA test they demanded came back negative. Obinna was not biologically related to Chief Bartholomew, but that only strengthened the will's validity. This wasn't about family obligation. This was about justice. Even if he is a goat herder, the judge ruled, he is now the legal heir to the Okezie estate. But the Okezie children weren't finished. If they couldn't win in court, they would win another way. Toby, the youngest and most desperate, hired men to kidnap Obinna. The plan was simple. Take the boy, force him to sign documents, transferring everything back to the family, then make sure he could never testify about what happened. But Nsukka is a small village. Strangers are noticed. Questions are asked. The night before the planned kidnapping, Obinna's teacher, a woman named Sister Agnes, who had taught in the village for 20 years, received a warning from a concerned parent. Strange men have been asking about the Umeh boy. They don't look like social workers. Sister Agnes made a decision that probably saved Obinna's life. She took him to the local police station and refused to leave until someone listened to her story. When Toby's hired men arrived at the compound, they found empty rooms and very alert policemen. Ifeoma tried a different approach. She identified every judge, court clerk, and legal official involved in the case, and systematically offered them fortunes to rule against the will. Some refused. Some reported her attempts. But some took the money. For 2 months, the case bounced between courts as different judges made contradictory rulings. Appeals were filed and mysteriously lost. Documents disappeared from court files. It was Sister Agnes who exposed the corruption. She had been quietly documenting everything, photographing expensive cars outside judges' houses, recording phone conversations where court officials discussed their new wealth, tracking bank deposits that coincided with favourable rulings for the Okezie family. When she presented her evidence to a federal task force on judicial corruption, the scandal exploded across Nigerian media. 3 judges were arrested. Ife Umeh faced criminal charges. The case was transferred to Abuja and placed under federal oversight. "You can't silence the truth with power," Sister Agnes told reporters. "This boy isn't just a child, he's a symbol. Justice delayed is not justice denied." As the legal battles raged, Nigerian media became obsessed with the story. A orphan versus billionaires. David and Goliath, with oil wells and inheritance laws. Finally, a major television station convinced Obinna to give his first and only interview. He sat across from the country's most famous news anchor, a quiet 11-year-old in his school uniform, facing cameras worth more than his entire village. "Obinna," the anchor asked, "what will you do with billions of naira?" The boy looked directly at the camera, his voice clear and steady. "I will build a school in every village like mine, for all the children whose families were destroyed by greed." The anchor pressed him. "Some people say you don't deserve this money, that you're just a village boy who got lucky." Obinna's response silenced the studio. "I didn't ask for this money, but the man who gave it to me said it was for my grandfather, who died for someone else's crimes. If I can use dirty money to help clean children, then maybe something good can come from something bad." The interview went viral across Africa. Justice, for Obinna, trended internationally. Support poured in from across the continent. Desperate and facing criminal charges, the Okezie children made one last attempt. Ada publicly offered Obinna a compromise. "Keep 10 billion naira and give the rest back to the family. Enough to make you rich beyond your wildest dreams," she said on television. "You're just a child," Raymond added. "You don't understand what this kind of money means. Let us manage it for you." But Obinna had been learning. Sister Agnes had connected him with educational specialists and financial advisors who had been teaching him about his inheritance and responsibilities. His response was broadcast live across Nigeria. "My grandfather died in prison for money he never stole. Chief Bartholomew left me this money to fix what was broken. If I give it back to the people who broke it, nothing gets fixed." He paused, looking directly at Ada through the camera. "You already have your own money. You don't need your father's guilt money too." 5 years later, Obinna Umeh had become someone even Chief Bartholomew couldn't have imagined. At 16, he spoke 6 languages fluently. He had been educated by some of Nigeria's best tutors, but had chosen to remain in Nsukka, commuting to a prestigious boarding school in Enugu. The Obinna Umeh Foundation had built 43 schools across Nigeria. One for each year, Chief Bartholomew had carried his guilt. The schools were free, equipped with modern technology, and staffed by teachers paid competitive salaries. But Obinna himself lived simply. He had moved his uncle and aunt to a comfortable house with electricity and running water, but he refused the luxury that his wealth could have provided. He still woke up early to help with farm work. He still walked to school when he was home. He still wore simple clothes and treated everyone with the same respect. When asked why he didn't live in Chief Bartholomew's mansion, he always gave the same answer. "That house was built with my grandfather's suffering. I don't want to live in someone else's pain." The Okezie children never recovered from their legal and financial struggles. Ada's media empire collapsed under the weight of corruption investigations. Raymond's shipping business fell apart when international partners learned about the bribery scandals. Ifeoma was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Toby fled Nigeria and was reportedly living in exile in Dubai. But Obinna never celebrated their downfall. When asked about them during a rare interview on his 16th birthday, he said, "I feel sorry for them. They had everything and lost it because they couldn't accept that their father tried to do something right before he died." He paused, looking out at the village where he had grown up and chosen to remain. "Chief Bartholomew didn't owe me anything, but he taught me that fixing one mistake can save generations. His children could have learned that lesson too. Instead, they chose to repeat his original mistake, putting money before people." Today, Obinna Umeh is 21 years old. The schools he built have educated over 100,000 children. His foundation provides scholarships, builds hospitals, and supports small businesses in rural communities across Nigeria. He studies international development at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, commuting from the same village where he once herded goats. He has never married, though he says he hopes to find someone who knew him before he was wealthy. "I want someone who sees Obinna first, not the money." When people ask him about his incredible journey, from barefoot orphan to one of Nigeria's most influential philanthropists, he always returns to the same theme. "I'm not a success story, I'm a redemption story. Chief Bartholomew spent 43 years carrying guilt. His children spent 5 years fighting for money they didn't need. I've spent 10 years trying to heal the damage that greed creates." He pauses, the wisdom of someone much older showing in his young eyes. Wealth without justice is destruction, but wealth used to fix injustice that can heal generations. This story isn't really about a billionaire who left everything to a stranger. It's about what we choose to inherit from those who came before us. Chief Bartholomew inherited his father's business acumen, but also his willingness to destroy others for profit. For 43 years, he carried both the wealth and the guilt that came with it. His children inherited his business success, but also his moral blindness. When given the chance to honor their father's attempt at redemption, they chose greed instead. But Obinna inherited something different. Not just money, but responsibility. Not just wealth, but the wisdom to understand that true inheritance isn't about what you receive. It's about what you do with what you've been given. In Igbo culture, they say that a child who knows where the rain began to beat their grandfather will know where to begin to dry themselves. Obinna learned where his grandfather's suffering began, and he chose to be the place where healing started. The most powerful inheritance isn't money or property or status. It's the choice to break cycles of harm and create cycles of healing instead. Chief Bartholomew couldn't bring back Umeh. He couldn't undo 43 years of guilt, but he could ensure that Umeh's grandson inherited justice instead of suffering. And Obinna? He could have lived like a billionaire. He could have bought mansions and cars and anything his heart desired. Instead, he chose to live like his grandfather would have wanted, with dignity, purpose, and the knowledge that true wealth is measured not by what you own, but by what you give. That's the real inheritance. That's the legacy that matters. That's the difference between those who are born into wealth and those who are born into wisdom. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to understand that justice can reach across generations. Hit that notification bell, because stories like this, about redemption, responsibility, and the courage to choose healing over greed, are what change hearts and minds. And let me know in the comments. Do you think Chief Bartholomew was right to leave everything to Obinna? Was this justice or just another form of injustice to his own children? Because somewhere in your life, you're choosing what to inherit and what to leave behind. The question is, will your legacy heal or harm the next generation? Remember, the most powerful thing you can inherit isn't money. It's the wisdom to know the difference between wealth and worth.